Time for more money with Matt Moore and Jay Money. Let's just start by unpacking last night's events in San Francisco. Jay, what do you make of the Warriors and what went down?
Yeah, in my opinion, I don't like that Draymond Green just kind of wakes up and chooses violence in some of these games. I mean, he didn't have to necessarily put Gobert in a headlock. He could have just went over and pushed him or something. Just we've seen this too many times from Draymond Green, but also it's interesting to see how the Warriors continue to win games on the road but lose them at the house. It's the exact opposite of what they did last year. So I actually think that's pretty interesting, and it's interesting to see who can be their second go-to scorer because, in my opinion, Chris Paul looks a little cooked right now.
I'd agree with that. I've been wondering about Chris Paul, but Matt Moore, your take?
One thing I think it'll be interesting to see how long Draymond Green is suspended. He will be suspended, but it'll be interesting to see how long it is. This is a gentler, kinder NBA, but you're also talking about Draymond Green, and repeat offender has been a term that's been used with him in regards to these incidents, especially after stomping on Domantas Sabonis in the playoffs. That said, I kind of am expecting about 5 games for Draymond Green. That's the over-under I would set right now. Some executives I talked to this morning said over, some said under, based off of the fact that there's rarely that kind of punishment for anyone in the league at this point. I will say I think the Warriors are going to be okay. They were an underplay for me in preseason for all kind of the reasons that we've talked about and seen from them early on in the season. But look, the overall resume here is still very good. Steph Curry is going to be back in a few weeks. It's not considered serious. He's not limping. He's not in a boot. He's not in a brace. It looks like that knee's going to be okay. They're just being cautious. The Warriors are top 10 in both offense and defense, schedule adjusted at dunks and threes. That's a really promising thing here. You have to kind of pay more attention to what the numbers are telling you early in the season than the win-loss record. Later in the season, you'll see, well, could you actually win the games or not? But early on, it's a lot of variant stuff. They're going to be okay. They're just not going to be maybe as good as people thought. And I do think that right now, if you're still looking at win totals live in the market, there's still probably a little bit of value on the under.
I'll say this about Steph Curry. Even with him healthy and playing great, Warriors were struggling, and you noted this earlier in the week, Andrew Wiggins' inconsistency and whatnot. So they have quite a bit to figure out, and that's before any potential Draymond Green suspension. And by the way, 5 games, it's pretty hefty. Wouldn't be so surprised, though. In other news, good news, Pacers get quick revenge on the 76ers. Indiana third in the East right now. Matt, any bets you advise making on them?
They haven't moved this line enough. Last Friday, we wrote about this for Action Network. The Pacers are still minus 136 to make the playoffs. This number is absurd. If you watch the Pacers, it's pretty evident that they're going to be a top 10 offense in the NBA. They're probably going to be top 5, but even being conservative, let's say top 10. Over the last 10 seasons and data I've collected, top 10 offenses are 88 and 12 in making the playoffs. Yes, no. 88 and 12. Top 5 offenses, if you're like me and believe that they're always going to be a top 5 offense, given how Tyrese Halliburton is playing, the pace and the shooting that they have, top 5 offenses are 49 and 1. Yes, no, on making the playoffs. They're going to make the playoffs. This number being yes minus 136. The downside here is literally Tyrese Halliburton gets hurt. That's what you're betting on right here. Because if they continue to be healthy, this is going to be a top 10 offense and they're going to make the playoffs. There's real good value right now on Pacers to make the playoffs minus 136 in the market.
Jay, what do you think? Pacers the real deal?
Yeah, I think so. I'm right there with Matt. I like the depth of this team. I thought they should have made the playoffs last year. Obviously, Halliburton had an injury, but that's literally the only thing that can hold them back. This is an MVP caliber type of player in Tyrese Halliburton. I like the way that they're coached as well. This is like you said, as long as they stay healthy, they're definitely making the playoffs. And I also bet the Pacers to make the playoffs as well. I got it at minus 140, but I think that it's a great play in my opinion.
Yeah, curious to see how Halliburton continues to emerge. But turning our attention to tonight, we'll see the Suns' big 3 for the first time against the T-Wolves. Phoenix laying 6. Fair or foul, Matt?
Foul. Definitely foul. This is a trap spot. And there's a lot of assumptions being built into this line that I think are pretty faulty. Let's start with the fact that this is the first game for the big 3 in Phoenix, and that's exciting and awesome. And hey, they actually get to have their guys, and that's good. What have we seen this season when star players, big usage guys come back in the lineup. We saw it with Devin Booker when he came in. The Suns lost that game. The first game with Bradley Beal, the Suns lost that game. Now they got 2 of them. It's more firepower, yes, but there's a little bit of clunkiness when you're trying to get used to that kind of usage being added, and they're trying to figure out how to play with Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker all on the floor. The Clippers obviously struggling with James Harden, a similar kind of situation. It's hard to integrate those guys right off the bat. The Wolves are on a back-to-back, but I tell you, this Wolves team right now knows that there's momentum here and that they've got a real opportunity to build up a good record, which could help them get into the postseason. They're hungry. They're not resting anybody. That's really interesting to me. Usually there would be like, oh, somebody's got knee tendonitis, or oh, somebody's got a sore hip or a calf. Nope, they're going tonight. I think they really believe that this is a moment they want to really push, because this Wolves team is trying to prove that they are good. When you haven't won anything, you want to prove it, and this is a good spot for them. Jay's going to tell you about the rest spot. He's going to go on and on and on about the rest and how everybody's on back-to-back.
How dare you put words in his mouth? The man is here. Let him speak on it.
I want to know what the numbers were. Hang on. I want to know what the numbers were. I looked it up. Last 5 seasons, teams favored with 1 day of rest or more versus teams on a back-to-back, just 47% against the spread. Not nearly as good as you would think. The market overcompensates for that rest spot.
Jay, your rebuttal.
I mean, first I want to show him the shirt here, a little Phoenix Suns Devin Booker shirt here. But I actually think that this is a trap spot for the underdog here. It seems the Wolves are gonna be a trendy underdog in this spot. It's not just a back-to-back for the Wolves. This is 3rd game in 4 nights. It's a back-to-back plus 3rd game in 4 nights plus 4th game in 6 nights, all on the road for this Timberwolves team. And also another thing that I'd like to fade as well, them coming off a big tournament win last night versus the Warriors, which you could kind of see them run out of gas. We can't forget Anthony Edwards is coming down from a sickness as well. After playing these games, I think this team is really going to run out of gas here. Many people may not believe that this Suns team is top tier with their big 3, but Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, and Kevin Durant is like an unstoppable trio there, in my opinion. So obviously the defense can slide a little bit. The Wolves are the better defensive team here, but when you have the Suns on a 3-game homestand, they've lost the previous 2 home games. This is somewhat like a must-win spot for the Suns here. I think they put everything into beating these Wolves by double digits tonight. So I actually think the Suns -6 is the right side here.
Don't mind me instigating a little inter-show drama, just trying to keep pace with the NBA. But that being said, let's get picks for tonight. Matt, what do you got?
Well, first off, I'm not going to put Jay in a headlock. You can just count on that. Suspension from there. I'll take the over 224.5 in Celtics Sixers. I've got this projected way over. Last matchup went under. A little bit of a different spot here. Embiid is questionable. Over is 20-14 in the post-Ben Simmons years for the Sixers. When Embiid is out, they play at a faster pace, and they don't have nearly as much defense as they did when Simmons was around. This team is still very good, and they have a lot of defenders. Nick Batum is also out with personal reasons. That, to me, gives a lot of indication here towards the over. For Boston, no Jaylen Brown. That means more Peyton Pritchard in this game, and Pritchard's numbers are really good in net, but it's all on the offensive side. The defense is about 4 points worse without him on the floor, or with him on the floor. So I think there's a good chance here for an over. By the way, this is also a back-to-back spot, obviously, for the Sixers. Teams tend to actually play faster and defend less. Defense is more work. So when you're tired, you're trying to just get up and down the floor to keep yourself moving because you're gassed. You don't necessarily slow down the way you would think. Teams tend to play faster, and overs tend a little bit on back-to-back. So I'll take the over 224.5 for Celtics Sixers.
That's a really good point. I'm going to go off on a side note here and just point out that I'm upset that the in-season tournament courts are ruining our beautiful aesthetic here on our screens for Green Dot Daily. Call me a hater if you want, but can't stand looking at those courts. Sorry, J Money, your pick.
Those courts are absolutely hideous. I can second that. But I'm going to go with the Portland Trailblazers first half team total under 53.5. Let's take a look at the Cavs team here. We know that this is a great defensive team, but they hadn't been put together back-to-back performances. And we hear the coach talking after the game about they have to look towards the defensive end. That's where their offense has to come from. If you look at the Blazers, this team really struggles at scoring the basketball and shooting the basketball, and mainly from three-point range. That's the main place that the Cavs aren't great at defending. Where they are great at defending is the paint. They're number 6 in defense in points per game in the paint allowed in here. So I don't think that the Blazers are going to get many easy baskets down low going up against Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. And also, they're not a great shooting team as well. If the Cavs could hold the Warriors to 52 first half points, I definitely think they can hold the Blazers to less than 50 points in the first half. So give me the Blazers in the first half, team total under 53.5.
Matt, don't worry, not going to ask for any hot takes on the Blazers or anything since you gave us, plenty of content earlier in the show. Matt Moore, Jay Money, you guys are great. By the way, you can also catch them on the Buckets podcast. I'm even going to join Matt later this week. Thanks again.